I believe DA is with us now. David, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Matt.
There you are. Let's talk about the Oklahoma City part of this deal. You know, we've been talking about Carmelo being traded somewhere forever now, but it was just last night when it was first reported that Oklahoma City had entered the mix and had become an acceptable landing spot for Melo. How quickly did this come together?
Well, very quickly, obviously, with Carmelo deciding in the last few days that he was willing to include Oklahoma City and waive his no trade clause to go to the Thunder. That made, there's no point in talking if he's not going to go there. It would be pointless. So once he said, yeah, I'll go to Oklahoma City, it happened very quickly. It took basically a couple of phone calls, including one this morning, between New York and Oklahoma City to get the deal done. The obvious pieces I wrote about this morning was Kanter because of his contract and because, the Knicks knew that you're not going to get back the kind of prolific scorer that you're trading out in Carmelo Anthony. But as long as it's not a shutout, as long as you're getting somebody who can score some in return, they were willing to do that. And as you mentioned, Kanter has been a very effective offensive player. We all understand he doesn't guard anybody. We all get that, okay? So we understand that. But he's been a very good offensive player. In 15-16, he was fourth in the league in offensive rating. He was 10th in the league in PER. I mean, this is a guy who's been an elite-level offensive player the last couple of years. And so from that standpoint, it's a reasonable trade-off for the Knicks, considering that they just could not go into training camp next week, Matt, with this hanging over them. You can't have 100 New York reporters who are not known for their tact, let's say, grilling Carmelo every minute of every practice after every practice about where he wants to go and is he happy there, and that just was not going to fly. And so they wanted to get this done as soon as possible, and they were able to do so.
What changed Melo's mind when it comes to Oklahoma City, and any sense of whether, and maybe this is a reach, this pickup game last year may have played some part in his decision-making when he spent some time with Russell Westbrook on the same floor together?
Well, look, I think I will never say, any one thing was or was not the cause of something. Obviously, face-to-face time matters, but I'm sure that Russell and Paul George were lobbying Carmelo all summer. Hey, come join us. That's what people do in the NBA now. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it was the notion of, if I'm really trying to chase a championship, and that was what Carmelo's camp continually told everybody all summer. He wanted to go someplace where he could compete for a championship, which is why one of the reasons why they wanted to go to Houston. Oklahoma City with Westbrook and with George this year, that's a pretty formidable threesome. Are they as good as Golden State? No, but they're pretty good, and they're as good as any other threesome out west right now. So they jump right to the front of the line in terms of teams that are going to line up and take their best shot at Golden State this season. So, it's not everything that Carmelo wanted, but it's everything he said was important to him in terms of the opportunity to compete for a title this year.
Ultimately, DA, why couldn't the Knicks strike a deal with Houston, Carmelo's preferred destination? Was it simply the Ryan Anderson contract, which, to my eyes, doesn't seem that much more onerous than the Kanter deal?
Well, the difference is the third year, Matt. Ryan's got 3 years left, $20 million per year. The Knicks did not want to go into 2019-20 with that kind of contract on their books as kind of a take-back contract. Kanter's got 1 year left plus a player option for 18-19. Either way, he's off the books by 19-20. The Knicks will have cap room that summer. They can't trade Joakim Noah. Nobody wants him. Right. So they're stuck with that contract. They didn't want to have another one on their books that they have to take for 3 more years. So this is why the Houston thing didn't work. Now, Houston tried to come up with all kinds of different permutations. We could get Matthew Dellavedova from Milwaukee, or we could get Omer Asik from New Orleans, and the Knicks were not interested in any of those kind of add-ons to the deal. At the end of the day, it came down to that third year. Just wasn't enough to get the Knicks to bite the bullet. And keep in mind, if Phil Jackson hadn't gotten fired, they may well have taken that deal. But once he did get fired and Steve Mills got in charge and they brought Scott Perry in from New York, the new regime from the Knicks did not think that deal was worth pursuing any further.
Carmelo Anthony, of course, has an opt-out option next summer. Is the Thunder's sense that he could be, or he's there long-term if they had that conversation, or are they just rolling the dice for a year and seeing what happens?
I think they're all in for next year, Matt, for this year, I guess we should say now, for 17-18. I don't think they're worrying about anything else. They know the reality that they've got three guys who can all opt out. That's the reality, but they're not going to. That's not something that they can concern themselves with. This is what the team that they have now. They will worry about next summer. The hope, obviously, is that this threesome leads them to someplace special, to the point where the three of them may feel more compelled to stay going into 18-19. But the reality is, everybody in the NBA believes Paul George is leaving and going to Los Angeles after this season.
Right.
And so you just put the best team you can together this year and go as far as you can this year and worry about the future in the future.
All right, 3D, let's get your thoughts, and I want to get to the style of play. Who plays where? Does Melo become a 4 in Oklahoma City with Paul George at the 3? Does everybody slide back and he stays at 3? How do you see it playing out?
Well, I think Coach Donovan has a lot of options, so to speak. I'm going to call it mid-ball because Melo's not 6'6". He's not. Melo's 6'8".
Right.
6'9", big body.
Big body,
great shape. So I'm going to call it mid-ball for the big picture because, let's face it, we're all talking about will they face Golden State in the playoffs. If that's the case now, you're talking about two teams with three guys. Obviously, Draymond Green is kind of the Swiss Army knife because he does so much. Mm-hmm. The question is, will all these guys buy in the chemistry? That's why Golden State's so good, because they share. They share the basketball. Not one guy over-dribbles the basketball. Is Melo willing to give some of that up part of his game because he likes to massage the ball? Paul George, you like to massage the ball too last couple of years in Indiana. Now, Russell, this is going to sound crazy. You can average a triple-double again this year, but the numbers will come down some. You don't need to score 30 this year.
Right.
You can average about 19 to 22 because now you have two guys that can finish all day long. Defensively, will all three of those guys buy in and want to help the helper? We talk about it every night. That's what the Golden State Warriors do. They help each other on the defensive end. Not one guy is a lockdown guy. Maybe Clay. I'll give Clay as a one lockdown guy, but Draymond.
Oh, with the Warriors, yeah. Clay's a great defender.
Great lockdown, but the rest of those guys, they help each other. So that's what Billy Donovan has to sell day one in training camp. Guys, we know you're talented, but if you're not playing for one another, this is not going to work.